Who's thinking about buying football in June? Well, with the super early bird football promotion at WagerTalk and Sports Memo, we have a few reasons why. Early bird pricing for NFL and college football combo is $8.99. But using coupon code FOOTBALL100, you can take $100 off, dropping the price to $7.99. If you purchase by June 30th and use coupon code FOOTBALL100 to get your $100 discount, we'll also toss in an additional bonus. On July 4th, we'll take the highest scoring MLB game of the day and give you $10 for every run scored. Yes, so if July 4th, the highest scoring game is 10-9, you will get $190 in wager bucks to use how you choose. This super early bird $100 discount using Football 100 and Wager Bucks bonus expires on June 30th with no exceptions. So if you plan to bet football this year, this is the lowest price we will offer. So act fast and lock in your favorite football handicappers in both NFL and college football through the national championships and Super Bowl.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Prop It Up. I am Pro Load Management Andy Lang from WagerTalk.com. We're here to make your weekend a profitable one through the prop betting market. I'll explain that here in a little bit. Joining me, as always, my fellow prop masters, Andrew McInnis from WagerTalk.com and Matt Josephs from SportsMemo.com. We got your prop of the week coming up at the end of the show. We got a lot of MLB. Of course, we got NHL playoffs and NBA playoffs winding down, and Andrew's going to talk about a league that is starting up, the CFL. So we got a lot going on. And Andrew, with the pro load management, right before we were coming on, we just go ahead. Just go ahead. What were you saying about Richard Jefferson and the hockey players talking about these kids these days?
Well, I mean, this is the best part about these pre-show chats, because sometimes it can transition into, on-air stuff for our videos. But, we were talking about, good. I like the way you said that, kids these days. I am one of those kids, Andy. I'm 24 years old. And the funny thing is you're backing up the side that I should be defending. I'm not. I'm a hockey guy. I'm a hockey fan. These guys, no matter who's hurt, no matter what the schedule is, they play every 2 days. No matter if they're traveling across the country, where they're going, they're playing every 2 days. So to me, there was a weekend game in the NBA, and there wasn't a game until Wednesday. The NBA trying to stretch things out, make as much money as possible, give these guys rest, and then we talked about during the season about regular, how many games these guys are playing. I don't know. It doesn't really sit right with me. But I have a theory, Andy, I think, and you kind of mentioned it before the show went live, why you're a fan of load management. Because you're a prop guy. You're the prop guy, man. You want your guys healthy. You don't want any question marks if these guys are banged up or not. You want to know, and I don't blame you.
All right, Matt, where do you stand on load management? A lot of rest in between for these finals games in the NBA. Where are you at?
I mean, I root for a guy who probably doesn't win the MVP, well, not this year, but in previous years, because he was a load management guy in Joel Embiid. So, I mean, look, the NBA would be better served if they played less than 82 games and had no back-to-backs. If you had no back-to-backs and you had less than 82 games, like this in-season tournament thing they're trying to get forth for the future, it's going to be a disaster. Like, unless you properly incentivize it, and I don't think you can. Less games, more rest, I'm all for it, because if I'm a person who goes to a city, like let's say I live in LA and I want to watch Joel Embiid and he comes once or twice a time and he doesn't play because it's a back-to-back, I'd be very mad because I paid a ticket just to see him. So I'm all for load management. I'm all for fixing the schedule, though, to prevent it.
Yeah, and I was saying long term I'm for load management because I like seeing these guys play 3, 4, 5, 6 years longer than their predecessors. We're talking about Richard Jefferson. Well, these guys, they're not playing. They need all this rest. It's like, yeah, they're playing 18 years though. I mean, Matt, you're saying Andre Iguodala may suit up tonight and play. LeBron averaged 30 in year 19. So I'm okay taking some games off here there. But Andrew, I know
a guy named Jaromir Jagr. You know who that is?
Oh yeah, he played into his 40s.
I mean, the guy literally is playing still. And I mean, if you told this guy about load management, he would be like, I'm going to the rink tomorrow. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'm going to play. But I get it. I mean, I brought up the fact that there's like after every NHL series, you find out about injuries players had. And to the point Andy made to me, congratulations to those guys for being tough or whatever, but good luck with the longevity. And that makes sense to me. I get that, but it is still, hey, if you have a cramp, even to the slightest, you're out for the entire playoffs. But they really want that NBA championship. Like they've looked forward to it their whole life. But if their thumb's hurting a little bit, they can't play. I don't know. I guess because I'm a fan of hockey, it's just two different types of sports. But when one sport will have like a torn ACL and still play, the other sport will have a cramp and not play for 2.5 weeks. Doesn't sit right with me.
Hyperbole much there, Andrew? A cramp. No, I like
LeBron got carted off, didn't he? Or Paul Pierce, the Paul Pierce game.
We're not talking about soccer here, guys. I mean, the cramp, you can actually, that sort of thing. You get carted off in soccer.
And anyways, I'm all for it. I would rather watch my favorite players who we can bet on play, extend their careers, few extra years rather than them taking a Wednesday game off against the Sacramento Kings. Doesn't really bother me. Doesn't really bother me a whole lot.
I can't blame you for that.
And Matt, yes, shout out to you about let's decrease the games for NBA, but let's add a tournament in the middle of the season.
Right,
so
we can't incentivize
paper.
LeBron to do the slam dunk contest, which would be awesome for the sport. But let's put a tournament in and have everybody play and say, yeah, let's add more games. Yeah, that makes complete sense.
Oh, so silly.
This comment section should be pretty good. Comment below on our YouTube video what you think about load management.
You guys better be on my side on this one. It's about long-term thinking. Think of it as a stock portfolio, long-term thinking. We're not day traders.
Listen, we all know Andrew goes into half of his shows with load management. You watch Prop It Up. There's times where he mails it in, so he's definitely load management.
Hey, look, whenever I go away and I don't see my girlfriend for a couple of days, that's load management right there. I mean, that's my only kind of load management that I deal with.
I don't want to hear about your load management.
I don't want to. That's
Andrew.
Yeah, that's no.
All right, let's get into some props here. Matt, I'm going to come to you first. We've got some interesting things going on in MLB. You got the Phillies on a tear after they fire their manager. You've got the Oakland Athletics, who are just absolutely terrible. The Tigers are struggling to score runs. The Yankees are putting up runs. That was an insane game yesterday. So what about K props and other props that you've seen over the last week since we last spoke in MLB, Matt?
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, I hate to sound repetitive on here. It's just, riding the waves. I mean, doing this, it's been a huge help that Ariel and I have done this spreadsheet that basically lists everybody's strikeouts, kind of how many overs and unders it's been. You really notice that it is a streaky thing. People who strike out, it's contagious, and it continues. You mentioned Oakland. They've gone over a ton lately. And yesterday it didn't go over with Pilkington, but today you've got Tristan McKenzie on the mound. He's a strikeout guy. But these teams get in these stretches. Another team that does it a lot is the Los Angeles Dodgers. And Junis is a 3.5 today. Now, granted, the juice was reasonable earlier today, but it's not right now. But I really have learned about how contagious this sort of thing is. Much like how win streaks happen, teams that strike out a lot. I mean, the Braves are on one of these long, epic streaks where they strike out 5 or more times. JT Brubaker, who's not as good on the road, had over 5 yesterday. He actually had like 6 or 7 in the span of 3 innings. So that's something to look for here. And kind of the other thing is I've decided my sweet spot. My sweet spot is overs on 3.5s and 4.5s and unders on 5.5s and above because as I've always talked about, and you've mentioned as well, like when you talked about Giannis's PRAs and stuff, the books know that the top end of the market, everybody's just going to bet the over. So when Shane Bieber goes out there, when Corbin Burns, and this is not to say they don't hit their overs, but they purposely inflate their numbers because everybody's going to bet their overs. And so I've decided that basically, look, I'm going to play most of my overs at 3.5 and 4.5. I'm going to play most of my unders at 5, 6, 7.5. And just that's kind of been the sweet spot this year for me and something that I kind of look at when it comes to these numbers.
Any teams that you want to highlight that you've found yourself, inadvertently or just, accidentally kind of betting against a lot or on purpose? Any teams you're really, really targeting for overs or unders?
Well, I mean, it continues to be the Cleveland Guardians, and I got it right this time, thank goodness, because I always call them the Indians still. So the Guardians are 37-12 to the under in their line K props. It's insanity, and we talked about it last week. Last week they had a week where pretty much they had all 2.5s and 3.5s, and they're still going under. Yesterday I had the under on James Caprillion. It was 3.5. They had 3 strikeouts. The day before that was Dane Dunning. It was 4.5. We haven't seen a 4.5 in this team for almost a week and a half. And he had only one. And so I think here's the key, and I've kind of watched this because there's a guy in our industry who's kind of struggling right now with K props, and I'm watching what he does with regards to handicap. And the key is you can't just handicap the pitcher, and you can't just handicap the team. You got to do them both. Because if you've got a pitcher who strikes out a lot of guys, but he's going up against a team that doesn't strike out a lot, you've got to consider the under. Likewise, if you've got a pitcher who doesn't strike out a lot of guys, Zach Davies, for example, he's notoriously a guy who doesn't strike out a ton of guys, but his last 2 matchups, he's had plus matchups, and he's gone over. So really, when you're doing the whole piece of the pie thing here is you've got to do the team and the pitcher, not just one or the other. And then if you're one of those guys that sprinkles in the umpire, I don't do that as much. I kind of use that as like a tiebreaker. If there's something I'm like, well, I'm not really sure. Let me see what the umpire is. But consider both sides of the prop instead of just one.
Doesn't get much better than analyzing K props in that. It's almost like, Matt, you can consistently do this throughout the season. Some might disagree, but I would say you can consistently do that. That spreadsheet's a great idea and great tips on handicapping. Andrew, coming to you. I want to talk CFL. Before we do that, just touch on NHL a little bit. I got bit last night. I had Kucherov and Stamkos to get over their shots props. Neither of them got close. They had an off game. But anything you're really noticing? Draisaitl, my gosh, what a performance! Talk about injury. He's hobbling around out there. And what do you have? 4 assists, 5 assists the other night.
Unbelievable.
It really was. So just talk to us a little about what you're noticing in NHL right now.
Yeah, Andy, it was incredible for both Draisaitl and for McDavid. I saw a stat; they finished top 5 like in history of the amount of points accumulated for a team to not make the Stanley Cup Finals. So,
wow.
I mean, they did everything they could, right? They did everything. I mean, you can only do so much for your team. You need some help, and they just didn't have as much as their opposition with Colorado. Look, what I'm noticing right now, as far as the Eastern Conference Finals goes, Game 6 will be tomorrow. Tampa Bay, they're a team that I thought was going to be just peppering Igor Shesterkin with shots. And you talk about that shot prop, I was looking at those as well, but then I realized this team is actually playing better when they're being more selective. It's something that I didn't figure I'd usually be saying in the playoffs, because usually the message that I'm preaching and from coaches is shoot from everywhere, hope for a good rebound, shoot from everywhere, don't be hesitant, don't be picky. But right now with Shesterkin, with how good of a goaltender he really is, you don't really want to, shoot from everywhere, because if he can see it, he'll save it. Get him laterally moving, and that's how you'll find the back of the net. Why am I saying this? You're going to make some money on the under on some of these shots on goal props, I believe, for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And even if they win the game, like they have been past 2 games, I still think you can cash some unders on shots. So I hate to use what you just said as an example, but I really think that's why it's happening. Is because, players are being more picky. They're just focusing on those shot quality over the shot numbers, which in the playoffs, it's usually backwards, Andy. But that's one thing I have really found out. And for the Rangers, I'm sure you'll agree with me on this one. It's top line or bust with these guys. It's the top guys or nobody. And if they're going to stay alive, if you want to bet some props on the Rangers for Game 6, you're betting on Chris Kreider or Mika Zibanejad and probably no one else. And I know it sounds weird saying that in hockey when there's 4 lines and not 5 players, but I really, truly believe they're going to live or die by their top players in that game.
Yeah, I mean, look at last night. Zibanejad, 1 shot on goal. That's not going to get it done for them, like not even close. So it's an interesting point about them being picky, because I watched that whole game, and you're right. Stamkos, he'll have games where he'll have 7 shots on goal. And last night it was like, nope, I'm going to try and pick my spots. And there were times he could have fired away. I took the over, so I was hoping to do that, but no, they were just looking for it. Hey, it worked. You're right. 3-1, they get the empty netter.
In the previous game, Andy, I had Shesterkin on his save prop, so I was wrong about that completely because I thought that Tampa Bay I was like, this is going to be awesome. They're off a loss. We're going to see Shesterkin get a bunch of saves. And then I was like, oh my, because they went from 52 shots on goal to 31.
Yeah.
That's a big difference for a team.
Absolutely. I know you're excited. We always love new seasons starting, and CFL it started last night, correct?
Yes.
Yes. And I believe you hit the over. I heard you talking about the over last night. I believe, and that was a nice one. So talk to us a little about CFL. I don't even know if they do props in the CFL. I know very, very little about it. So talk to us about CFL, what the season's like, how long is the season, and what can we expect from it?
I'll tell you what, Andy, if the props become widely available, buckle up, everybody. We're going to have some fun. The only time I really see props is at some Canadian books and stuff like that. So we'll see. I mean, you can get futures and different stuff like that at DK or FanDuel, some of them. But, oh, boy, if we start getting some props, you can do fantasy. I believe FanDuel and DraftKings have fantasy lineups for them, and I will be kind of releasing some, images, screenshots of some lineups that I'm, FanDuel lineups I'm creating and different things like that. They play 18 games. Each team plays 18 games. CFL, bigger end zone, wider field, more players, less downs. One thing is obviously you can score 1 point in the CFL, which throws a lot of people off. That happens, of course, when you get trapped in your own end zone. Of course, also, if you miss a field goal and the person behind the field goal post catches the ball and can't get out of there, it is a point for the other team, which to some people, they find that absolutely ridiculous. I think that's one of the weirdest rules. But again, you see the singles all the time. Special teams is huge. I advise people when you're doing your handicapping with CFL, you need to have good special teams. You need to have good kickoffs. You need to have a good punt returner. You need to have a great field goal kicker because with the less downs, it's not 3-and-outs, guys. It's 2-and-outs. Happens a lot. And if you have a great kicker that can put you in good field goal position, it turns into a chess game. And Saskatchewan, I mean, his kicker, if our guy Matt Josephs gets CFL props, Brett Lowther will be his new CFL kicker prop guy. He wins games for them every year. I mean, a lot of times he's their highest scorer in games. They just field goal after field goal after field goal. But anyway, these are two divisions, the East and the West here. There's more teams in the Western division, guys. So at the end of the season, one team slides over into the West, or excuse me, from one team from the West slides over into the East for their bracket to make up for the playoffs. So the bottom team in the West doesn't make the playoffs. The team above them slides over into the Eastern Conference and joins their bracket for the CFL playoffs. I wanted to give out a future here on the show that I think presents plenty of value here, and it is on the Toronto Argonauts here. To win the Grey Cup, you can get plus 600 with this team. A lot of well-respected journalists and guys that cover the CFL have thought this is the deepest team right now in the CFL, and I would agree. You look at, they have all the pieces. They have another year under their coach, Dinwiddie, who I think is an unbelievable coach. They've got a great mix of vets and youth, which I really like looking at, especially in a league like this. And you look at kind of McLeod Bethel Thompson, who's their quarterback. They bring him in. He had some weapons. He didn't have the protection at the offensive line like you'd want him to have. They now have that. I love the protection I believe he's going to have this year. And then you take a look at some of the pieces they went out and picked up, and one of them being, the best running back potentially to play in the CFL, which is Andrew Harris. He comes from Winnipeg, and Winnipeg are the back-to-back Grey Cup champions. Andrew Harris was a little bit injured last year, so they let him walk. Winnipeg let him walk in free agency, guys, because they realized that they found out while Harris was injured, wow, we actually have lots of depth at running back. We don't need to sign Harris to another big deal. They let him walk. Andrew Harris goes to Toronto, and that fills a huge gap that they needed big time. another guy that was trying to get paid, but his team didn't want to pay them. That's Brandon Banks, slot back, former Hamilton Tiger Cat, now playing for Toronto. You throw in Declan Cross, one of the best fullbacks in the game. And I just think they have some of the best linebackers as well that are really going to surprise some people. So, I'm seeing people talk about the fact that they're going to have a rush game now. They're going to be able to mix things up. And it's so important to CFL to have someone that can gain you some yards on the ground. But their defense impresses me. The moves they make in the offseason impress me. And I think the East is wide open here, Andy. So at plus 600, that's my play to give out here on the Prop It Up show today for the Toronto Argonauts to win the Grey Cup. I think they're right there at the end of the season competing for the East, and then we find them in the Grey Cup.
That's great. It's great stuff. I mean, as NHL and NBA winds down, boom, there's another sport to add to portfolios. So really good stuff. A couple things, I guess I'm gonna. I have to talk just real quick about golf. We have the Saudi Arabian League that kicked off yesterday.
What are your thoughts on that, Andy?
My thoughts are this is going to splinter and fracture golf. I'm depressed.
What about betting wise? I guess I'll ask you.
Oh, I wouldn't touch the Saudi league. There's no way. So the guys that have moved over from the PGA Tour, they all have something in common, and that's that they're not winning on the PGA Tour.
And they're traders.
So, well, it's getting messy because the U.S. Open, which is next week, came out and said we're letting the guys that qualified play for it. So if you take guys like Bryson DeChambeau, Phil Mickelson, Patrick Reed, and Dustin Johnson, what do they all have in common? They've won majors, so they're exempt to all the majors, and they're not winning on the PGA Tour. So they have the best of both worlds, which is they can go play on this Saudi league and still play in the majors right now. You've got Patrick Reed and Bryson DeChambeau announced they're going over. Pat Perez and Matthew Wolff are going over. Again, these are guys that are on the PGA Tour but are not winning. So I'm looking at the Saudi League and I'm seeing guys that are going over to take the money. They're not competing for wins. And I watched yesterday, and the golf is terrible. The guys that have been paid. Here's the other thing that the Saudi League. There's no motivation for these PGA Tour guys to win these tournaments. They've been paid their massive appearance fees. So I watched these guys, and they're just kind of ho-humming it up the course. They could care less if they win this tournament. They've already got paid. And it's only 8 tournaments a year. This is not a huge season. So these guys like Dustin Johnson, who you're used to seeing 25 times a year, you're now only going to see 8 with the Saudi League. The production, they don't have a TV contract, so you can only watch it on YouTube. They broke all the teams. They broke the players up into teams, which is so confusing. Nobody can follow it. The production's a little messy. They'll clean it up. But this reminds me of in the 80s, open wheel racing was huge. The Indy 500 was huge, and they had a fracture just like that, and it murdered the sport. It crushed it. I see the same thing happening. And the amount of money, one of the families that funds the Saudi League, Andrew, is worth $1.4 trillion. So when you're talking,
no shortage of cash.
No, and they're open. They don't care about losing money. The Saudi League is here to stay. They have said we're going to lose money on this, and we're fine with it because we think it's going to increase our standing in the world, and it's going to increase business opportunities for us. They are going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars every year, and they don't care. This is not, you can't look at this league and go, well, it's not sustainable. They don't care if it's sustainable or not. They know it's not going to be sustainable. Yeah, so the product is bad right now. The quality of golf is bad. They're not getting the huge names that are competing on the PGA Tour. And what it's going to come down to is what's going to happen with the majors. If the PGA Tour can work with the majors and say, lock these guys out, then it's going to be a problem to jump to league. But if these guys can still play in the majors and go over to play in these 8 leagues where they're going to make a ton of money, they're going to do it. It's depressing. I hate it. I could just see that this is I can see where this is going, where it's going to really ruin golf. Something similar happened in tennis, where now you have big names where only Andrew, you kind of follow tennis. Some of these big names, they don't care about any other tournaments except the majors. They'll make it to the semifinals in the major, and then they'll lose the next, in the first or second round, the next couple. I think that's where golf
they
is
make
going.
it clear. It's almost like too obvious, Andy.
They don't hide it. No. So
it's like, Wimbledon's coming up, so I'm not going to play any tournaments for a couple weeks before that and 3 months after that.
Yeah. So it's not great, and for me, take these big name guys like Patrick Reed, Bryson, DJ. They're only playing 8 times a year. I used to be able to bet on these guys 25 to 30 times a year. We're taking big name guys out of the betting pool. So we'll adjust to it. We always do. But the fan in me is really bummed. I actually am watching it right now, and it's a train wreck. I've never heard of 75% of these guys that are playing right now. It's bad. So anyways, we got the NBA tonight. I tread a little bit lightly with props tonight. I know it's Friday night. Everyone's really excited about NBA. I think there's a couple ways that you could go about attacking this NBA game. I've liked what I've seen in the first half from Boston. I hate what I've seen in the third quarter from Boston. So I'm looking at first half overs for the team total for Boston. I believe it's 55. You look at it, last game at home, they had 68 first half points, and they had 48 in the second half. The one-day arrest, I think, could have an impact on Robert Williams, of all people. It also could have effect on Steph Curry, who came out and said the foot that he hurt was the exact same one that hurt him in the regular season, where he missed several weeks on it. So one-day rest, I'm not betting unders on Steph, but I would be a little bit cautious. And then, good luck figuring out what you're going to get from Draymond and Clay. These guys have been really, inconsistent. I will say I've noticed Clay's attempts on 3-pointers have gone up every game in the series. I think he went from 7 to 8 to 13. So you might look at Klay Thompson getting over his 3-pointers just to sheer volume, especially if Steph is a little banged up. So, Matt, I know you had quite a few props in the last NBA game. Any thoughts on tonight's game or what you've noticed NBA props in this series?
I feel like there's some value potentially on the over for Grant Williams. I mean, we always talk about, and I know I've heard from you, role players play better at home. And last game it was 5.5. He went over that. I just looked. I saw 6.5. I still wouldn't be afraid of it. And I think, the first quarter, Celtics first quarter once again. I mean, the home teams come out with this burst of energy. The Boston crowd is unfortunately a good one since I don't like anything Boston. But and then the under on Poole. I mean, Jordan Poole, if he doesn't hit a bunch of, that insane shot in game 2 and doesn't play in garbage time in game 2, that one goes under. He went under in game 3. It just feels like this is not a series for Jordan Poole. Now, if Curry's not 100%, Poole's going to have to step up a little bit. But I feel like until the wagon wheels come off, I'm going to keep going under on Jordan Poole's points and then see what happens.
Yeah, Matt, I was going to ask you, who is the best NBA player of all time? Is it Jordan, LeBron, or is it Jordan Poole when the Warriors have a 20-point lead? Because I feel like he's like the most front-runnery guy in the league.
I thought that bet was a winner, the under on Poole's points in game 2, and I'm like, he hits that 3. I'm like, all right, that's fine. And then all of a sudden, all the scrubs are in, and he's the best guy in the court, and of course, he went crazy. So, and then, game 3, he had 10, and he still went under, and I think I saw the number was 11.5. I think it's just, this is not a good series for him. It's just, he's a guy who, as you said, front runs, and, I probably won't play at game 5 when they go back to Golden State, but, in Boston, I just think your role players at home are going to play better. It's Al Horford who's the one that's kind of all over the place. It feels like, game 2 he was Sixers Al Horford, game 1 he was Celtics Al Horford, and then game 3 he was Thunder Al Horford. Is that what we're looking at?
Guys, what happens with Draymond Green? I mean, what's the under over for podcasts made today, and what's the under over for rebounds today? Because Matt, you made a point in our group chat we have on Twitter with all of us that it's a genuine concern taking props with him when, for foul trouble. And, I think that if he plays a full game and plays at his best, we could see a whole different game from him, but we could all see the exact same thing. Is it a stay away from him for you guys? Is it someone that's just too hard to predict, or is there money to be made tonight?
Matt, for me, it's under or nothing for Draymond. I don't know what you think about Draymond tonight.
Yeah, he's due an ejection. I thought Scott Foster was going to ring him up, and by the way, Scott Foster should have gone tonight to ensure this thing be 2-2 back to Golden State. I didn't understand that decision by the NBA. And by the way, the other thing, I don't care that Draymond does podcasts after the game. I don't care. I mean, Michael Jordan used to go gambling. Dennis Rodman, well, I don't even want to know what Dennis Rodman was doing after games. Like, I understand. As long as he's consistent after wins, after losses, if he wants to do his podcast, go right ahead. So I had no problem with that.
I agree. I like that take, actually. I agree.
Yeah, Andrew, talking about, we started off talking about the young guys and the older guys. Jordan and Rodman and guys like that, they were doing stuff before games. There are legendary stories about guys. I mean, Jordan playing 36 holes of golf before games in the finals, drinking a case of beer. Like, it's a podcast. It's not like he's doing the podcast at halftime. He's doing it after. He's doing it after.
I wasn't saying anything bad, for the record. I was just joking around. There's stuff in hockey too. I mean, Ovechkin. What can, like, Andy? You guys know Ovechkin, obviously. What could anybody tell that guy right now? The guy has looked more and more overweight as his career has gone on. He still claps 30 goals a year, at least 40 maybe, more than that maybe, and he drinks Dr. Pepper on the bench, apparently. In his water bottle, there's in his water bottle, there's Dr. Pepper. I've heard stories of him before milestone games, taking down 10 beers in the hotel the night before. These players would do whatever they're going to do. There's definitely, and I like the point that Matt said about as long as he's doing it after every game. Could you imagine if it was only after losses? That'd be kind of funny. All right, we lost. I got to hop on and do a pod.
There was a dietitian that got hired by the Mavericks, and on one of their first days, realized that after practices, Luka Doncic had this big thing, and he thought it was water, and it was sweet tea. So Luka would get done with practice and down a gallon of just nonstop sugar and sweet tea. So yeah, the Ovechkin is a good one. I would say top 3 all-time celebration after a championship. Ovechkin, the scenes that he put on. So Andrew, real quick, we're going to get to the prop of the week, but tell everyone what you got this weekend, and also just tell everyone about CFL. I'm sure you've got season packages and what everyone can expect from you moving forward.
Yeah, of course. CFL package up at WagerTalk. No promo codes necessary. You can just go to my homepage. You can grab that. Join me for the full season. If you don't want to do that, you want to just kind of figure out what I have going for client plays for the next week or week or two, you can use the promo code WEEK69, which will get you a week of plays, all sports, for $69. And the one thing I'll say for this year compared to what I had to deal with last year in the CFL, guys, we're back to the odds being released early, just like what we'll see in the NFL, Monday or Tuesday morning, these odds being up. It wasn't fun as a CFL bettor having the odds be released the day of the game. The whole point for my job is to try and predict where these numbers are going to go, get the best number available. So I really encourage people, if they're interested in betting CFL with me, don't buy my plays Saturday afternoon. Don't buy them Saturday evening. Hey, I mean, if you want to, go ahead. But go ahead and buy them on Wednesday or Thursday when you're going to get that best number possible. You can use the promo codes for a week deal, or you can go ahead and grab that full season deal. And as far as UFC goes, Andy, I mentioned this last week. I've been very rare. I've had back-to-back 5% plays in the UFC. I do have one again this weekend on an 11-3 UFC 5% run. And since August 2021, I've hit 75% of my UFC best bets. That's 4% and 5% plays, 75%.
This is a great UFC card to bet on. I've got 3 plays loaded. I don't have a 5%, but I've got 3 plays that I really like. Very, very bettable UFC card. So yeah, absolutely go grab Andrew's 5%. Matt, what do you got going for us this weekend? I'm sure we got lots of K props. So tell us what you got up at sportsmemo.com.
Yeah, right now I got a 6-pack up, but it'll probably get reduced as the day goes along because the juices for some of the K-props will move a lot. Obviously, I'd like to have the all-access people come on because, at 8 o'clock in the morning when I'm putting these things in, the juices are very manageable. I don't do a lot over minus 150. Most of them are under minus 150, but as the day goes on, the number changes, the juices get more expensive. So certainly the all-access people get it. And basically I'm also shopping around. FanDuel sometimes beats DraftKings. DraftKings beats FanDuel. BetMGM copies one or the other one. So make sure to find the book and shop around on the juices on these things because these books have different philosophies. And then I'll also say this, not that I'm doing too much with it now, but DraftKings just put out their win totals for every college football team in America. Athlon is put their magazine out. Phil Steele's coming out soon. So the college football stuff will start to come a little bit early. And we killed it last year on the win totals. So it's never too early to start thinking about college football.
Great stuff. Yeah, Matt, you mentioned line shopping. I've never, ever seen a year more important to line shop than this year across all sports with all different books. You're seeing 40 cents difference on some of these plays, sometimes even more. So having multiple books is so important this year. You can find all my stuff on WagerTalk.com. I've got 4% best bet up in the NBA. No NHL, but we do have a strong auto racing pack. We've got NASCAR and Formula One this weekend. We're hitting 65% this year in auto racing. So really happy about that. And MLB, of course, we've got a really strong play that's going up right after this show. So go grab that or 3-day pass. Like I said, we're going to have 3 UFC bets when all is said and done. All right, gentlemen, it is my turn for the prop of the week. I'm going completely crazy and off the board because I found a stat that is going to blow everyone's mind. So I'm going to take Derek White over half a block. And I know this is a weird one, but I bet nobody knows that Derek White has 13 blocks in his last 13 games. This prop has hit in 8 out of his last 9 playoff games. So not really sure how he's getting these blocks. Some games he's not even playing a whole lot of minutes, but he has 3 blocks in this series. He had 1 last game, 2 the other, and he had a block in every single game against the Miami Heat. So I'm playing the odds that this is going to move from 8 out of 9 to 9 out of 10 tonight. You're getting really easy juice, minus 120 on DraftKings. Shop around to some of your books. But Derek White over half a block tonight is going to be my play for the Prop It Up prop of the week. All right, gentlemen, that's going to do it. You can find all of Matt Joseph's plays and wagers, especially those K-props. Go take a hard look at those K-props. He's probably the best in the business right now. You can find everything at sportsmemo.com. Andrew has a 5% play, hitting 75% long-term on those. Go find that at wagertalk.com. I'm Andy Lang from WagerTalk.com. Go check out my auto racing plays, MLB, and NBA as well. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck, everyone, on your bets. Let's have a profitable weekend, and we will see you next week on Prop It Up.
Who's thinking about buying football in June? Well, with the super early bird football promotion at WagerTalk and Sports Memo, we have a few reasons why. Early bird pricing for NFL and college football combo is $8.99. But using coupon code FOOTBALL100, you can take $100 off, dropping the price to $7.99. If you purchase by June 30th and use coupon code FOOTBALL100 to get your $100 discount, we'll also toss in an additional bonus. On July 4th, we'll take the highest scoring MLB game of the day and give you $10 for every run scored. Yes, so if July 4th, the highest scoring game is 10-9, you will get $190 in wager bucks to use how you choose. This super early bird $100 discount using Football 100 and Wager Bucks bonus expires on June 30th with no exceptions. So if you plan to bet football this year, this is the lowest price we will offer. So act fast and lock in your favorite football handicappers in both NFL and college football through the national championships and Super Bowl.